What social customs do we need to retire? When I was a kid, I went to a preschool connected to a church, and one day they took us to a nursing home. They had a dozen or so seniors lined up sitting in chairs, and we were asked to walk down the line and give each one a hug, a kiss, and a prayer. I don't remember exactly how I reacted, but I remember refusing to do it and being scolded. I'm a nanny and this has always been the weirdest thing to me. I make a very strong point to teach all the kids I nanny body autonomy. Then mom makes them hug and kiss creepy aunt and uncle. One aunt always treats my 4-year-old nanny kid like a baby and my nanny kid hates it. I'm teaching my boys the same. How can they understand consent, not Vincent face with tears of joy woman face palming light skin tone, when theirs is ignored for family? So we teach, do you want to give a hug, kiss, high five or just a wave? It's the hardest to get the older generation on board. They constantly want to force hugs, when like look you're this kid's world and fave person but sometimes he just doesn't want to hug you, be okay with that. He'll change his mind in 2 minutes, but if you force it all the above will change eventually. My almost 5-year-old niece was just in town with her folks and on our last catch up before they flew home my sister-in-law told her to give me a hug and kiss goodbye. She of course promptly hid behind my sill and refused. She really doesn't know me as we live in different states and during the visit she didn't hugely interact with me. She's a bit odd. My sill spoils her and tolerates the diva behavior. I leaned down to my niece's height and told her that she didn't have to do that but I'd love a high five or a wave. Because my sill had essentially given her a bit of anxiety around having to kiss someone she then refused to even look at me so I didn't get any sort of goodbye. I practically screamed it out loud when my so told my son to kiss his mom goodbye and he didn't want to. He doesn't have to kiss anyone he doesn't want to. And I think it shocked us all, but man, why would anyone think that's okay? I would certainly never kiss anyone I didn't want to, and I stand by that. Everyone has that right, even children. Maybe even especially children. I hated this as a child and vowed never to do it with my own. Yes, I will force them to say goodbye to guests before they go. I think it's rude not to, but hugs and kisses need to be freely given on their part. Now, I happen to have huggy/kissy kids, so it's not been an issue, but kids should never be forced into giving hugs/kisses when they don't want to. I have had to tell this to so many people, to give their children control over their bodies and who they hug. To have to explain how bad that can be, how that can lead to molestation, it's sad. And pretty much every kid I know has come around to hugging me, which I'm not always crazy about, but let kids develop their own trust and comfort with people. Friend of mine from work had started on 27.5K, after a year he applied for a more specialized role in another company and when they asked him what he was hoping to make he said around 35K. They started him on 44K. I feel, at least in Ireland, this type of question is more about 2 or 3K in the difference of what you could make. If he'd said 45K for example, I feel like he'd have gotten that. But even still they weren't going to shaft him 10K because he didn't know what the job was worth. I got in trouble for this at my first legit job out of college. Dude who worked at the company for 4 years asked what I made. which was higher than him for effectively the same job, though my title had senior tacked on in front of it. Boss asked me not to do it, and that dude was gone to another job within a month. Or, for the slightly more fortunate, I am sick, but just going to work is less of a hassle than getting an appointment with my doctor to get there and pay for a sick note and then do all of the catching up when I get back to work. If you don't want your staff coming in sick, believe them when they tell you they're sick. There are plenty of things wrong with my workplace, but I'm so thankful if anyone ever tries that shit. Almost every manager will look at them like they're crazy and tell them to leave work and rest up for the marathon versus kill themselves on the sprint. Part of the reason I've been there 10+ years. If I take a sick day, I've had to take 2 this year, no questions asked. Actually, it's encouraged. 10+ years ago, I was working in a call center that threatened to write me up for requesting to leave 1 hour early because I was vomiting so much I couldn't stay at my desk. Put in my notice the next day. One of my old managers made double what I did and came to work sick because it's not that bad and I'm a team player. A week later and I was out for 2 weeks because I caught what he had. I really couldn't afford to miss a day, but I was also bedridden and almost ended up in the hospital because I couldn't breathe. Good thing he was such a team player, lol. I had made my distaste for diamond mining clear, so my now husband searched more for an artist than a stone. He ended up finding a really creative jeweler who used lab diamonds, and I absolutely love my ring. We can be a little bit traditional, so I like also that it has the customary aesthetic while being ultimately very modern. Oh, and it was a great deal. There's still some energy costs to man-made diamonds, and arguably they drive some demand for mined diamonds, kind of like how vintage furs can contribute to that market, but for me, it was so cool knowing my diamond came from New Jersey and someone more or less did the carbon equivalent of 3D printing it. Even De Beers is getting in on lab diamonds, so I think the tide is really turning. Anyone curious about the diamond market this decade should definitely read Tom Zollner's The Heartless Stone, which looks at how mining devastates communities and gives hope in the form of the future scalability of lab-created diamonds. So one true aspect to diamonds is that they hold up better than most other stones and won't scratch from daily wearing. A lot of the really interesting stones are quite soft and easy to scratch when wearing daily. I considered getting my wife's birthstone instead of diamond because she also has an indifference to diamonds, but hers is a very soft stone and I know the frequency with which she'd hit it on things. Ended up being able to use a diamond from a grandparent's ring, then also gave her a style-matching second ring in her birthstone so she could decide what to use that day. I agree the price thing is beyond stupid with diamonds though. A natural cemetery opened a few years ago not far from me. In 2017, it cost $250 US to put a shroud-wrapped body into a plot in a lovely park-like setting. There is no need for embalming when having a funeral in a day or two with modern refrigeration, but there are environmentally friendly, natural fluids that can be used, if someone really wants it, but that costs more, so why bother? The natural burial also eliminates the CO2 emissions of cremation and gives your body back to the earth to use for food and nutrients. Sign me up. I broke my clavicle last year into 3 pieces. I'm sitting in the orthopedic surgeon's office with my arm in a sling, a 3 long bruise on my leg, blood dripping from my ear and another bruise the size of a dinner plate on my shoulder with my arm in a sling, wincing in pain every time a breeze blows. The doctor walks in. "How are you doing today?" I simply responded, "Well," and made a Vanna White motion with my other arm like, "Look at me, how the F do you think I am doing?" I wish they could just pay higher wages and include a service fee in the prices. I don't want to tip either. Unless I'm at a nice restaurant, I don't want you to feel like why have to try with me for service. Just make sure I have my food and drink. Restaurants near me, Georgia, USA, have started including a 20% tip automatically. Why not just raise the fucking prices to include that? Then customers get mad that they're assuming the 20% tip. Just raise the prices and end tipping if you're going to include that. Peer pressuring into socially accepted but potentially dangerous activities. For example, in many countries in Asia, many circles expect you to drink alcohol with them. Even though it's slowly changing, there still exists severe cases like seniors physically forcing juniors to drink alcohol. Hierarchy/seniority in workplaces should be lessened as well. In some places, seniors hold way too much authority over juniors. Weddings. Dumbest clapping hands, waist clapping hands of clapping hands, money clapping hands ever. I worked in country clubs and I've worked 100s of weddings. These young couples piss away so much money on a one-day ceremony announcing to everyone that they are married. If you look at it objectively, it makes zero sense. Newlyweds would be way better off having a courthouse wedding, making a formal announcement through social media, and save the money for a down payment on a house. I have a friend that had an accident at work and lost 2 of his fingers. He got a pretty decent workers' comp settlement. This dude goes on Facebook and announces that with the settlement he'll finally be able to give his wife the wedding she always wanted. Man facepalming, this dude lost half his hand and is going to spend the money on a wedding. Meanwhile he's got mortgage payments, car payments, and he's missing part of his hand. Teaching kids super cutesy names for their genitalia to avoid awkwardness. Stop it with the cookie and the wah-wah and the wee-wee. I would for sure rather have my daughter scream vagina in a crowded store because she doesn't know social graces yet than to not know she is being abused because the trusted adult she told doesn't know what your cutesy made up words. I also don't want her to think parts of her body are too embarrassing to talk about if she has a problem. Dress codes at school. Been hearing about how girls in the USA get punished if wore anything that seems inappropriate like midriff, strap tops, cleavage, and short shorts, but if boys wore them, they don't get punished. In the UK, most high schools require uniform but they are outdated as girls can have an option to wear trousers or skirts but boys have to wear trousers all year through, even in the sweltering heat. Shorts isn't an option. Also think uniforms are just too expensive. I used to think it was unfair that Muslim girls get to wear trousers for PE while the rest had to wear shorts, no matter how cold the weather was. Good grief, this gets under my skin like nothing else. If we've agreed to a date, time and location to meet, why do you need constant reassurance even you've not had a definitive cancellation? Why must you be coddled and handheld for social agreements? Make a plan and stick to it, you're not a toddler. It's so fucked. When we told our family that we weren't circumcising our son, which to us was a thoughtless no-brainer, they all tried to manipulate us that he'll get bullied or it won't work right, etc., etc. Do it while he's young. They said so he doesn't have to go through the surgery as an adult. Why would he though? He had his tonsils removed this summer as a 5-year-old. Should we have cut them out the day he was born just in case they became too large in the future? FFS. Dressing for your age. I didn't survive the past 30-some years for a shit-stained Gen Z on TikTok to tell me what I can wear. I finally have the dollar and freedom from parents and employers. You better believe I wear what I want where I want. Living out your childhood dreams feels way better than dressing appropriate for my age to have approval from people who won't remember me, and we all gonna die anyway. Colorful clothes for the win. Pressure to have children. So many times I've heard, well, if you don't, your bloodline ends with you. Children are happiness. You'll change your mind. Well, why don't you hold my baby? It'll change your mind. That's cause you haven't seen my kid. They're so adorable. Like, no, I don't enjoy children. They annoy me to no end. Holding or seeing your crotch goblin won't make me suddenly want to have my own. I would rather save the money and enjoy existence, over having an 18+ year commitment when I can barely afford my own life. It's stressful and I shouldn't have to constantly be pushed towards it because of some false belief that parenthood is the only true happiness that can exist, and if you aren't a parent then you're wasting your life. There's enough people in the world, me adding more isn't necessary. Gendered clothing, especially for kids but for adults too. If you love wearing a suit and feeling manly, that's sick. Me too a lot of the time. But I should also be able to wear a light, flowy sundress free of judgment. That shit is comfy. I'm Scottish, and even wearing a kilt, a traditionally male outfit, I get the LOL nice skirt comments. As a female, I can only agree. Even clothes that are more accepted on all genders, like suits, blazers, pants, etc., are always so painfully, unnecessarily gender-based designed. I just want a simple jacket, but because it's in the woman's section, you're gonna remove all the pockets? For the same price if not more expensive? Man, fuck that. I'm just buying that same jacket in the men's section and enjoy having 5 huge pockets. The garter tradition at weddings has always weirded me out. Weddings in general, really. I don't think you should feel like you have to spend a crap ton of money on a wedding if you don't want to. I thought I would be dead before I got married. I am now engaged to my partner of 5 years. My parents got married in a courthouse, so they don't really care. His parents had a nice wedding. I think socioeconomic plays a part in it as well, considering I grew up quite poor and he grew up middle class, but weddings can be insanely expensive. I don't really care if we have a big wedding or just sign the papers and be done, but I would much rather save that money and pay off student loans, save up for retirement, save money for kids if I choose to have them. I can think of many better ways to spend that money. I think if you want a big wedding and can afford it, then have fun and go for it. But it feels like I have this immense pressure just to conform and have this big wedding that I don't think either of us really want. I don't have a lot of family, especially not that I get along with anyway, and I'm a pretty shy person who doesn't like attention that much. A wedding seems like an expensive hassle for me that would make me incredibly uncomfortable. Pointless small talk being expected. Yes, I know it is a cultural thing. It is a complete waste of time, look the old man in the waiting room and I can just mind our own business while we wait. I absolutely do not want to ask him hey how are you, because even though the correct response is I'm fine, he is going to spend the next 5 minutes telling a complete stranger his entire medical history, and I do not care. I get it, that is its own unique problem, but even if he answers correctly he doesn't care how I'm doing, I don't care how he is doing, and there is absolutely no reason to talk about the weather.